apologize for a slight delay. It is 7:03. We will start the Planning Commission meeting at this moment. Karen, can you please take a roll call vote of the members?
Commissioner Young?
Aye. Here.
Commissioner Batty?
Here.
Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Commissioner Keen?
Here.
Commissioner Brink?
Here.
Chair Langness?
Present. We have a quorum. Next, we have our nation's pledge. I would ask that those able join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. All right, we do have quite a few people that have not been on one of our Zoom calls, so I'm going to just kind of briefly ask that those that aren't members of the commission, or when you're not speaking, if you could put yourself on mute in the lower left corner, there is that feature so that you're not giving feedback. There is numerous public hearings tonight, and I will call for each of those public hearings at the point they come up. For applicants that are on the agenda, when we get to those points, we'll give some more instructions on how to bring you up, as well as for members of the public. Next on our list is approval of the agenda. Commissioners, do we have a motion? Commissioner Young? Commissioner Young, you're on mute.
Yeah, move approval.
Second.
Commissioner Young moved. I heard Commissioner Brink second. Is there any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, Karen, can you please take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Young?
Aye.
Commissioner Batty?
Aye.
Commissioner Miller?
Aye.
Commissioner Keen?
Abstain.
Commissioner Brink?
Aye.
Commissioner Brink? Chair Langness?
Aye, motion carries. We're on to item number 6, Encore Apartments Master Sign Plan Unit Development Amendment Application. This was tabled from our 1014 meeting and is a recommendation to City Council. Donovan, do you want to start us off?
Chair Langness?
Yeah.
We need to do item number 5. Approve minutes from the previous meeting.
Thank you. It's been a while since I missed one of these, and Paul finds humor in it. We're on item number 5, approved Planning Commission meeting minutes from October 14th, 2020.
So
is there a motion? Commissioner Batty moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Young seconds. Is there discussion on the meeting minutes from October 14th? Seeing none. Karen, can you please take a roll call vote on the meeting minutes?
Commissioner Young?
Aye.
Commissioner Batty?
Aye.
Commissioner Miller?
Aye.
Commissioner Keen?
I'll abstain. I was not at that meeting. That's what I thought we were on the last vote. I thought we were on agenda 5. So.
Commissioner Brink?
Aye.
Chair Langness?
Aye. Motion carries. Meeting minutes are approved. Now we are on to item number 6. Encore Apartments Master Sign Plan PUD Amendment Application that was tabled from the 1014 meeting. This is a recommendation to City Council from the Planning Commission. So Donovan, do you want to kick us off with an update from the last meeting of any changes before we give the applicant an opportunity as well? Donovan, you're on mute.
Thank you. I'd like to present the Encore Apartments Master Sign PUD Amendment. And this was tabled from the previous meeting, and Planning Commissioners provide some further guidance for the applicant to resubmit. And I'm happy to note that they did resubmit. And also I'll note that they unfortunately, the applicant had a company meeting this evening that he's unable to make this meeting. And so I said I would represent the application and hopefully I'll be able to answer all the questions commissioners may have. I would like to present the, what they did present is the Encore Apartments, Heritage Heights, and Legacy Point signs. You'll see this is the image from, it was in the staff memo. On the right is the resubmitted image. Just for comparison, I'm also including the approved master sign, monument sign for the Encore Apartments. So you can see that they, on this, it does meet that 6-foot height maximum, or does not go over that height maximum. And they've included some of the brick that they included in the original one as kind of a band on the southern end. And meanwhile, keeping the style they desire with this amendment, and just updated their branding basically. And so we have, so that material, brick materials, a more kind of something that is more of an echo of the solid buildings that they represent, and the same style is shown in the in their submittal, which has, again here, the that, and then both Legacy Point and then also with Heritage height. So you can see this is, what we went from, and so they have submitted this again with the in legal height, and this square footage of the sign is still pretty similar. It's below that, it's at, I think it was at 20 square feet. But, not over the I believe it's not over the 32 square foot sign stand, square footage. So that is what, Norhart has submitted. And happy to take any questions from the Plan Commission.
Questions on the application changes, commissioners? I'm not seeing any, Donovan. Do we have any public comment on this item? I know there isn't a public hearing, but was there anybody, or maybe Karen, is there public comment on this? Okay. Commissioners, we can move into consideration of a motion. Commissioner Young?
I greatly appreciate that the applicants listened to us and brought back a conforming sign. And so I would move approval of the resubmission.
For clarification, Commissioner Young, is that with staff recommendations?
With all staff recommendations.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Young has moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Brink has seconded. Is there discussion on this item? I think they did a great job as well. Commissioner Young and I agree. I do like the new design, and I think the brickwork looks nice on the bottom as well. So unless there's any other discussion here, we can, Karen, can you please take a roll call?
Commissioner Young?
Aye.
Commissioner Batty?
Aye.
Commissioner Miller?
Aye.
Commissioner Keen?
Aye.
Commissioner Brink?
Aye.
Chair Langness?
Aye. Motion carries. We're on to item number 7, Forest Lake High School Conditional Use Permit Amendment Application. This does contain a public hearing prior to consideration of the CUP amendment application by the Commission. This is a Planning Commission approval as opposed to a recommendation to City Council. So the process here for any members of the public wishing to speak, whether they're at City Hall or on the meeting, is we will have staff present the application to us. Commissioners will answer or ask questions of staff. The applicant will then be given an opportunity to add anything that they wish. Commissioners can ask them questions, and then we'll open up the public hearing. And after the public hearing is when the commission will make a decision. Donovan, do you want to kick us off, please?
Certainly. I'd like to present the CUP amendment application for the Forest Lake Area School District's redevelopment and enhancement of their athletic field at the high school. As you may remember, schools are conditional use in this MXR1 zoning district. And there have been several CUP amendments related to new construction and new facilities. And following the 2016 bond referendum, all that construction has been virtually, it's pretty much completed, and now they're moving on to athletic fields. And so what we see here, I'd like to share my screen, is the current site, and it's showing here's the high school, here's 61, here's Highway 97 on the top there, on the north. And this submitted image shows, somewhat in construction, the multi-use field, multi-use field proposed here, and then the football field that's proposed to be outfitted with AstroTurf, bleachers replaced, lights installed, and also another storage building constructed. So I'm running through here is the kind of the existing conditions. So we get to the actual multi-purpose playing field that's proposed. As you can see, here's the new wing on the new field house that was constructed with that most recent project. And so the field here is within their, of course, kind of a former ball field area. And then the other big construction area is the football football field and stadium area with extensive replacement of turf, track, bleachers, field box, concession stand, and storage building. I guess it's addition on that south side. Also mentioned that we have Larry Martini, business director from the school district, and Greg Buchhold, project engineer, on the call with us. And so, of course, there's not really any zoning, setback rules and whatnot for athletic facilities like this. And so a lot of it we look at, what it and basically is just enhancing the existing athletic use. One consideration is, of course, if you're improving the site, could pinch and of course holding more athletic events here. Parking will be something that needs to be accommodated mostly on the site. There's an advantage to this property since, let me kind of jump. Can you see this screen still? The arrow.
We're still visualizing the PC packet PDF of the field.
Okay, thanks. Let me jump over to the other piece. Just kind of give you just a general view of the existing conditions in the area. So, with events, there is 912 parking spaces within this high school parking area. And I assume that the district headquarters parking would also be utilized, as well as, and this, I think this mostly pertains to events that happen here on these western fields, is parking along the long bus queuing driveway. So that's a real benefit for serving these athletic fields. Also, there are light poles that are proposed, some up to 90 feet tall, and there is a submitted photometric plan that shows really this kind of multiple pages, but looking closely at them, you can see that once we get, let me get a good image and I'll zero in. Once we get beyond kind of the field area, where the lights are focused to be, on the playing fields, there's really minimal light shown in these photometric plans, I'm sorry. Here's one shows, for instance, on the, with the bleachers on the east side, kind of where, where the lighting will be, even the stands. And 0.4 is the maximum that can spill over off the property. And here in the stands, we even have something that's, approximately a third or a half of that maximum light spillover. And looking at the conditional use permit findings of fact, I don't believe there's any impacts that are negative from if this was these improvements were built. And the staff recommendation is for approval with a list of 9 conditions that relate to meeting the city engineer's concerns, continuing with the 1999 and 2016 conditional use permit conditions, and conditions that relate to the pole, maximum pole height, and also accommodating the additional storage structures, which on a previous CUP set a maximum number. And I'll just say as a side note that with the comprehensive rezoning, I look to actually propose a public and institutional zoning district, so that these pretty much unique properties, both with these institutions, they can be a school district, they can be a different type of government building, how these can have different standards, so that there can be these sorts of improvements, and you can kind of view them in a better context than within the MXR1 zoning district. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions from the Plan Commission.
Commissioners, are there any questions of staff? I have one, Donovan. The height of the towers for the lights at 90 feet, I suspect that does not cause issues with any regulations with the airport, but what is the height there that's allowed without having to put like a red beacon on top or something?
It's 200 feet.
Okay.
It's at general FAA rules. So that's why you see lots of mobile cell towers at 198, for instance.
All right. Thank you. With no other questions from commissioners, Larry, are you starting us off, or is it Greg?
I certainly can. Good evening, everybody. I'm Larry Martini with Forest Lake Area Schools. I'm the business manager. We're very excited to bring this athletic fields project to you folks for the conditional use permit. We think it's going to be a huge asset for the community now with turf in a couple locations. It will allow for a lot more use for the kids in the community. Mr. Greg Bukal from Larson Engineering is also present with us this evening, should you folks have questions. But we have worked very well in the past and will continue to do so with your contracted city engineer, Ryan Goodman, and Mr. Donovan Hart. So without further ado, I'll let Mr. Bukal offer any comments he has, but that's our statement at this point. Thank you.
I would just echo Larry's comments that we're very excited about the project. We're very happy on it, and I'm mainly here to, maybe if you have any technical questions to help out with. Thank you.
All right. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Commissioner Young?
Got two questions. One, considering the FLA facilities and the need for soccer, lacrosse, football, will this be a truly multi-sport field? Will you be able to have more than just football on this field?
Absolutely. We're actually tomorrow working with some folks from the turf companies for markings, and we fully intend to have football, lacrosse, and soccer lines drawn on both of the fields, in addition to softball lines. You might recall that there's a field placement mirroring the softball field. And so that will also have those three sports in addition to softball.
And my second question is, will the public be able to use the track for walking?
We're excited about that prospect as well. Finally, we'll have a safe track at the high school. And we are working with Mr. Bukal to do some upgrades later this spring at the middle school's track.
So the public will be able to use the track for walking?
Yes, yes.
And yes, I am truly excited that finally we will have a track that is safe so that Forest Lake can have a home meet for the first time in, what, 15 years?
Could be more than that, yes.
That's it. Thank you.
I do believe it was before I was on the school board, which is over 15 years ago. So I think you're both right. Other questions of the applicant? Commissioner Batty?
This may be sound surprising, but I'm just looking at these photometric charts here, and I mean, do you feel like you have enough light under the stadium? Those, I mean, you're like, most of it's under is under 2/10 of a foot candle, you know, just barely more than 1/10 of a foot candle. I'm surprised that that's not a little brighter. I look at, in my profession, I see these things. I'm just surprised that it's as uniform as it is. I'm just it'd be interesting to know how they got it so uniform.
Well, it's the new LED technology. Mr. Bukal can explain a little further if need be, but with each of those large rectangles, we'll be placing a number of fixtures that are rectangular in nature, but the folks from the lighting firms tell us they can put the LED pixels directly where they want to aim them. And so it will actually be brighter on the field than with the existing high intensity lights that we currently have. Much brighter on the field. And then the amazing thing for the folks in Bridle Pass who are to the east of that stadium facility, with the lids, the screening, the shades, that's how that lighting gets so reduced once it hits the stands. So it'll feel brighter and look brighter than it currently is at the playing field, and yet little or no spillover because of the focusing. Greg, am I missing anything?
No, I think you summed that up very well. And yeah, the LED technology allows much more focused light. Doesn't go where you don't want it to go.
You missed my point here. I am not questioning the lighting on the field. I know you want that uniform. I'm talking about peripheral light, you know, that would be available, you know, that it would be in use when you have a night event there. I was questioning the amount of light underneath the stands, underneath the bleachers. Is that accessible space, or is that inaccessible space? I was just questioning the 1/10 of which is almost no light at all.
Yeah,
under the stands. I'm not questioning the lighting for the rest of it, and I understand the LED technology. So
yeah, sorry.
I was just asking specifically about the area underneath the bleachers. First of all, is it accessible? And secondly, are you comfortable with that level of light?
It's not accessible, and yes, we are.
Okay, fine. If it's not accessible, then it's not an issue.
Other questions from commissioners of the applicant? All right, Greg and Larry, hang on. Sometimes other questions come up in discussion. We will move into the public hearing. And so we'll open up the public hearing at 7:28 p.m. Donovan, do we have anyone at City Hall wishing to speak on this item? Donovan, you're on mute.
I apologize for that. We do have two people here. Do either of you want to speak on the city school district high school athletic improvements? No, they do not want to speak on this matter.
All right, and then Karen, I'm going to ask you the same question. And if there is a member of the public that's on the Zoom call and hoping to speak to this item, you can raise your hand or hit the chat feature to the City of Forest Lake account and we'll get you in. Karen, is there anyone up in the queue?
I do not have anyone.
All right, hearing none, we're going to give it 30 seconds just in case someone decides they wish to speak, and then we'll close the public hearing. All right, Donovan, nobody else walked in City Hall, correct?
That is correct.
And Karen, nobody raised their hand?
Correct.
All right.
Nope.
There's no public comment. We'll close the public hearing at 7:30 p.m. and bring it back to commissioners for consideration. Commissioners? Commissioner Young? And then I'll grab you, Commissioner Miller. I saw your hand go up right after her.
Mr. Miller, would you like to go first?
Actually, I just had one question of Donovan, if I can still ask. The lights themselves, do they have to shut off at a certain time in our city? Is there an ordinance about time that they can be on and off?
The CUP, I will have to pull that up. I believe, maybe Larry, you might remember this time. I think there is a deadline for activity at the school, high school. Do you recall that time?
I do not. I'm sorry.
Okay. Let me, Commissioner Miller, let me pull up information. Maybe perhaps Commissioner Young can speak first.
Donovan, if I remember right, it's in the very first CUP from, what is it, 96 or something? Commissioner Young, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I was going to make a motion, so if Commissioner Miller would like me to wait until his question is answered, I'd be happy to do that. Okay. Then, Mr. Chair, I would recommend approval of this CUP application with all 9 conditions of the city and recognizing the 8 conditional use findings of fact.
Commissioner Young has moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Miller seconds. We'll move into discussion. Is there any discussion on this item? Before I call a vote, I will wait until Donovan responds to Commissioner Miller's question. But Commissioner Miller, go ahead.
I'll just mention that when I'm looking at my phone, it's not because I'm getting other messages. I'm looking at the notes and all the stuff for the meeting so that I can follow along.
That's okay.
I don't have double screens.
When I'm looking at the side over here, I'm looking at my computer screen that has all the maps up too.
Okay.
So. Commissioner Brink.
And I just want to say, when I first got to the high school, probably almost 25 years ago, I think even then the track was in some great need. So I am, like Commissioner Young, very happy to see this go through. So that's it. So
Commissioner Brink, are you going to head over there before they tear it up and grab yourself a piece of the track?
That's a very good point. I should do that.
For the history.
Mm-hmm.
Donovan, do we have an answer yet?
I don't. I'm running through all kinds of project info. I was just in the 99.
I guess my question was then, if there is a time limit, are the lights set to shut off at a certain time, or are they manually turned on and off?
Mr. Martini, are you able to answer that?
We would be using a manual system because for the lights to be operational, our athletic director would actually be on site. For the other field by the girls' softball field, that is not planned to be lit at this point in time. Girls' softball coaches can operate those lights. So each of those circumstances would be manual.
Thank you. Are there other questions from Commissioner Keene?
Commissioner Batty had a great point about under the bleachers. I know years ago when I'd go watch football and stuff there and track, there was a lot of stuff going on under the bleachers during the games and stuff. So maybe it's something to look at, maybe a couple of lights at the top of the bleachers, you know, underneath or something, just a minimal lighting, something like that for security and safety.
Is there other discussion on the motion? Commissioner Miller, I'm getting the look from Donovan like he doesn't have your answer yet. And I'm not trying to put pressure on him, but how important is this for your decision?
It's not. I guess it is and it isn't. My only concern would be that if they have to be off at a certain time, you know, what do we do in the instance where games run later? Are they going to get? I mean, that's my only concern. But it's not a major issue. I'm sure the city can work something out with the applicant.
Okay. Is there further discussion on this item? Donovan, we'll relieve you of digging through that. And Karen, can you please take a roll call vote?
I'm sorry, was there somebody that seconded the motion? Did I get that?
Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
Correct.
Commissioner Young.
Aye.
Commissioner Batty.
Aye.
Commissioner Miller.
Aye.
Commissioner Keene.
Aye.
Commissioner Brink.
Aye.
Chair Langness.
Aye, motion carries. Larry and Greg, I forgot to note it in my comments, but the project looks nice, and good luck to you and the school board in making that a reality. We'll move on to, and you are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but I would just ask you to put yourself on mute. We're moving on to item number 8, MU1 zoning text amendment, medical uses as a permitted use. This does contain a public hearing. And Donovan, do you want to kick us off?
Certainly. I'd like to present the zoning text amendment. This is to formally introduce medical uses in the MU1 downtown zoning district, mixed use zoning district. I'm going to bring up on the screen to show you the extent of this zoning district as shown here in the downtown area. Basically, it goes down to 3rd Street to the south, over to 3rd Avenue to the south, 3rd Street to the west, and then up to 4th Avenue Northwest, and over here and hugging the shoreline. I'm representing essentially the historic downtown area for the city. It's only been recently come to my attention that in the mix of it was a B2 zoning district, that the former medical use, except for hospitals, that was part of that zoning district, the former B2 Central Business District, didn't get transferred over to this M1 district when the current zoning code was adopted in 2010. There's some notes within the 2030 comprehensive plan that state that the MU1 district permitted uses should be similar to the MU2, where that is a medical uses are a permitted use. And there's also language related to within the MU1, how offices are a permitted use. You know, in the way the zoning code is written, that unless a use is explicitly permitted, it's prohibited. And so just recently I had to, you know, tell a sign permit applicant who want to expand their, you know, signage on, you know, within the MU1 district, that would be an permitted expansion of non-conforming use. And when I started digging into it, I realized that this was something that I mean, it really had like a kind of a real life impact at the moment. That's why I wanted to bring it forth to the Planning Commission, and in which, you know, in this case, zoning text amendments, Planning Commission makes a recommendation, and Council makes final decision. I did include a draft ordinance in the packet. And then we did get a letter of support from the board of the Park Place, and Rich Fries is also a participant in the call as well. And they do support this change. It notes in the letter of support that there is, you know, there are 3 actual medical uses existing within the Park Place development there on North Lake Street. And I'll say that I actually went to one of them at one point. So they do exist, and this, you know, zoning text amendment would allow that to actually be a conforming use. And I believe it's also would be a real benefit to the downtown to allow these, and of course serve current and future residents, both in Sherwood Point and Lighthouse Lofts, and other nearby residents, to be able to walk to their medical appointments. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions from the Planning Commission.
Commissioners, questions on the staff report? Commissioner Miller?
Donovan, so right now it's not permitted, it's not part of our zoning text amendment. If we changed it, obviously a clinic or something like that could move into one of the downtown businesses down there. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Which means that there's going to be a lot of cars potentially. Do we have enough parking? I mean, are they going to have their own parking? I mean, where are they going to park in our city lot, or are they going to, you know, because those buildings don't have any parking that come with them except underground, I believe, and the street. The rest is all city parking, correct?
There's, you know, of course, on-street parking for you know, if you're referring just to the Park Place project.
Yes.
And there's city parking, you know, in the rear. And obviously there are crunch times for those. I'd like to say, you know, well, always, I mean, it, you know, it's in some ways with downtown, that's kind of a good problem to have. You want people, you know, using your downtown. And currently there are empty spaces downtown. And, you know, looking from a community development standpoint, I'm not expecting retail to, you know, occupy all those. I think we'll see some more offices. I know of real estate office there's insurance offices that's, you know, going to occupy some currently empty space downtown. You know, the Park Place, I mean, but not just to focus on the Park Place project. I mean, that was approved and has had, you know, a series of tenants, mostly retail, some other office. But of course, the mixed use downtown zoning district does incorporate, you know, many more blocks than simply those, than you know, just that one project.
Commissioner Young?
Donovan, I think that existing buildings and existing, whether they're the condos in Park Place and some of the other areas, they have the parking that is part of the city's lot. And if new buildings were put in this MXR district, then they would have to meet the parking criteria that is in the zoning code, correct?
Actually, there's an exception carved out within the areas bounded by the 2nd Avenue North, the 2nd Avenue South, and over to Centennial Avenue. And this is meant to not have, I believe the intent is so that we don't have large parking areas that would basically block out the kind of the activity centers, the attractions that we want to have in the downtown area. So, perhaps in the future, long-term future would be a parking structure, but there's not, and the code does encourage the larger congregational uses to provide their on-site parking, but they're not required to.
Other questions on the staff report? And Donovan, we don't have an actual applicant for this, correct? It's city initiated here?
Correct.
Okay.
And this is something I took that role because I believe it was unintentional omission during that 2010 zoning rewrite.
Okay. So if there's no other questions on the staff report, we can move into the public hearing. I'm not seeing any questions, so we'll open up the public hearing at 7:45 p.m. Donovan, do we have anyone at City Hall that wishes to speak on this item?
No, we do not have anyone in City Hall wishing to speak on this item.
All right. And Karen, do we have anyone pending online for it?
I do not.
All right. If there is anyone, please raise your hand or send the City of Forest Lake account, Karen, there a note. We'll give it 30 seconds before we move to close the public hearing. All right, Donovan, anyone walk in?
No, sir.
Karen?
Nope.
All right, we'll close the public hearing at 7:46 and bring it back to commissioners for consideration and or discussion. Commissioners? Commissioner Miller?
Yeah, I would just recommend that we, to the city council to adopt the ordinance to amend the zoning code to allow medical use as permitted in the MUN downtown area.
Commissioner Miller, I heard you say I recommend. Did I miss the part where you said I move?
I'm sorry, I move.
That's okay. I thought maybe it's the Zoom call. So Commissioner Miller moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Batty seconds. Discussion on the motion? My only comment is I think it's a good catch on an oversight, Donovan. For those businesses that we have downtown, like a pharmacy probably falls under medical use. I would kind of call that retail. Some of the other medical uses in that zoning district, I could probably find in other pieces in there. But I think this is an improvement to where they may have found that leniency already. But so I appreciate the correction on the omission. Is there other discussion on this item? Seeing none. Karen, can you please take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Young?
Aye.
Commissioner Batty?
Aye.
Commissioner Miller?
Aye.
Commissioner Keen?
Aye.
Commissioner Brink?
Aye.
Chair Langness?
Aye. Motion carries. We are moving on to item number 9, and this is to note very similar to item number 10, as it's reflective of the same property and applicant. But number 9 is Smith Property Comprehensive Plan Amendment Application. It has a public hearing. And when we get to item number 10, that is the zoning map amendment application and has a separate public hearing. So we'll go Donovan, Commissioner questions, applicant an opportunity, Commissioner questions. We'll then open the public hearing and then bring it back to us, and then we'll do the whole thing over again with the second note on the Smith property. Donovan, do you want to kick us off?
Certainly. These are listed as 2 agenda items and do require 2 motions, as Chair Lang has stated. I will be presenting them somewhat in tandem since they relate to the same property and are pretty much one builds on the next. I'd like to present the comprehensive plan amendment and zoning map amendment for a 40-acre parcel behind Menards, currently owned by Mark Smith, who is with us on this call. The property, if you may recall, was the subject of a interim use permit to allow agricultural use and actually even a zoning text amendment last November. And council did approve this, and that dealt with a much larger section of property. It's about, I think it's about, was it 90 or 100 acres of upland back here. A lot of it is wetlands. If you look at your Broadways here on your screen, Menards here, Cub Foods shopping centers is there. This property itself is approximately a little less than 40 acres. It does have some portion of it on the far side of Broadway Avenue, and currently the 2040 comprehensive land use category is mixed use. And that provides for a full range of retail as well as high density residential. Mr. Smith would like to change this future land use category with this comprehensive plan amendment application to the low medium density residential, and correspondingly do a zoning map amendment to change it from its current, actually as a commercial, highway commercial, the B2 zoning district currently, to the MXR1 zoning district. And that would allow up to 6 dwelling units per acre and up to 8 attached units all the way to single family dwellings. So it's that mixture that we see elsewhere with what I call our kind of the modern zoning district with that many of our neighborhoods are being built out as. As far as the comprehensive plan amendment goes, it's largely a legislative act, which the Met Council leaves to, gives wide local deference to the cities as far as making that decision. The application itself does involve reworking some of the housing projections, something I've been working actually with Headwaters 123 comprehensive plan amendment that Planning Commission recommended approval and council approved in August. I just submitted that formally last week and working through that. So I'm getting used to the process. But that would be to shift it from this mixed, shift the property from mixed use to the low medium density residential, as well as the for the zoning map amendment. There is a series of findings of fact and criteria that Planning Commission and does consider, and at this point, the findings of fact to me don't indicate any adverse impacts on other properties, and this is has been all the property to the south is zoned for residential. So this would be more consistent. And Mr. Smith, the owner and applicant, has submitted a narrative saying that he's tried for years to encourage that type of commercial development, and even in city records there's a concept plan which does show large retail format development on that northern end, but that has not come to pass. And so at this point, Mr. Smith is proposing to amend the comp plan and the zoning map to allow him to do residential, medium density residential on the property. With that, I'm happy taking questions from the Planning Commission.
Commissioners, are there questions on the staff report? Commissioner Miller.
Donovan, we spent the better part of a year looking at our comprehensive plan and putting our comprehensive plan together. And we had many, public meetings and discussions and invited people to give us input and talk to us about, zonings and what we were doing with the comprehensive plan. I'm surprised this never came up until now after we've got all this done. You know what maybe changed recently that now we're coming back to try to change something that for a better part of a year we put in place and worked on?
I don't have a clear answer for that one. We did, public outreach. We tried to reach people. And generally with these type of, in this case, for instance, moving from that highway business to a mixed use was an expansion of possible uses. And generally, I tend to look at that as providing more options for development. And it is on a county road there, pretty high traffic for our community, pretty high traffic count. And I don't believe I had any exchange with Mr. Smith in that process. I believe that's something that maybe you could speak to a little bit, if he was aware of that, or, and we do try to get it right when we do that long range. And that was something like a 2.5 year process. And I agree with you that we really try to get it right the first time, but then it's also, this process to amend. And this is, this is a valid process. And in this case, I'm not sure, putting my community development hat, what's it going to take to develop some of these parcels. And it seems like what we saw as the commercial properties don't have the same value as they did, even, as we were going through that process.
All right. And Mr. Smith will be able to answer that in the applicants section coming up after questions on the staff report. Are there other questions on the staff report? I have one, Donovan. This property bordering Columbus, is Columbus's zoning essentially single family residential or rural residential right there? Or will that be commercial? Like it'll go commercial, residential, commercial?
It's, it is a residential zoning district. It would be somewhat equivalent to our rural residential. It has a 5 acre minimum, if I remember, because there was a developer who was interested in that property and doing more intensive development, but really only it would require public water and sewer to do that. And that, that conversation has not been taken up in probably, over 3 years. So I don't know if that's going to happen in the future, but I really would not expect it to be, developed as commercial property on that, on the Columbus side.
Thank you. Are there other questions on the staff report? And Mr. Smith, if you want to unmute yourself and add anything that you wish, give any presentation. And I know there was at least one question, and I guess it would be nice if you answered that in there too.
Mr. Chairman and commissioners, thank you for hearing this tonight. Donovan, thank you for the presentation. I guess I'll answer the question, because that's really all I have other than the presentation that Donovan had given. I thought when this the comprehensive plan amendment changes were being made, I thought they were changing this zoning to a residential use instead of a mixed use. So it was a misunderstanding. I would have been much happier if this would have been done when that was done, instead of having to pay the fees, which was substantial to do this by myself. So I would say it's a misunderstanding with the city when they were doing this. I thought it was going to be zoned to a residential use. The commercial zoning cost for doing this is, the taxes are about 3 times as much for this property as all the other parcels there. And I saw that I was going to not have a commercial use. I know I had Ray Newkirk was looking at it and he said, well, why would I buy your property? He says, I'd like to be here, but he says, I can get free commercial property over by the airport. And that kind of, at that point, I'm like, why am I doing anything commercial here? There's just not any retail. There's no interest in the retail. So I wanted to change the zoning, and I thought I had passed that on to the city, but obviously it ended up changing, but it didn't go all the way. It went to mixed use versus a pure residential. And the county looks at mixed use as a commercial use still. So it's, I do need to get it, or would like to get that removed and have it a residential use. That's all I have on that. And I think there are good reasons for that. There just isn't the demand for commercial that far out. The big box stores seem to be disappearing, and we're at best holding where they're at. So I don't see this being a commercial site in the future.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Commissioners, are there questions of the applicant? I'm not seeing any, so hang on though, because sometimes they come up later. We will move into the public hearing for item number 9, which is the comprehensive plan amendment application. So we'll open up the public hearing here at 7:59 p.m. Donovan, do we have anyone at City Hall?
No, we do not.
And Karen, do we have anyone pending online wishing to speak on this item?
I do not have anyone.
All right, we will give it 30 seconds from now. If there is someone wishing to speak to this item, please raise your hand or send a note to City of Forest Lake so Karen can bump you in.
See, Mr. Chairman, if I can ask one more question, is that right? I'm sorry, just wait 30 seconds.
So Mr. Smith, you can speak in the public hearing here if you wish, we could certainly have you as the applicant, add additional comments after the public hearing. Did you wish to speak during the public hearing?
Yeah, I had one question. Donovan had mentioned that there's one property on the northeast corner that abuts my property that he was going to maybe add to this. I don't know if that happened or not, or if that's part of this, or if it's just strictly my property.
Is it Chair Langness, is it proper for me to answer?
Yep, it was a technical question, so you can go ahead.
Oh, certainly. I reached out to that property owner and, explained the whole situation, and I didn't get a response. I didn't think it was proper to shift the zoning without her knowledge. And in fact, it almost, she should have signed the application in this case to be a part of this. But once we do the comprehensive rezoning, I think that I'll reach out to her again and correct that. What is now a non-conforming use is a single-family home in that upper northeast corner.
All right. Donovan, did anyone walk in City Hall yet?
No.
And Karen, has anyone indicated online that they wish to speak during the public hearing? Karen, you're on mute. Karen, you're still on mute.
Sorry about that. I have no one in.
All right, thank you. We'll close the public hearing at 8:02 and bring it back to the commission for consideration. We are on the comprehensive plan amendment application. Commissioners? Commissioner Miller.
Donovan, I just want to clarify the MX R1 use, that's what it is right now?
It's, we're kind of in the midst of, doing the rezoning. So it's right now it is B2 highway business.
Okay. And our comprehensive plan is changing it to MXR1.
Well, no, it's to mixed use.
Mixed use, which would be residential and commercial, correct?
Correct, like a higher, but only high density residential, like 10 to 15 dwelling units per acre.
Right, or commercial property with residents above it.
Yeah, correct, ideally, yes.
Okay.
Commissioners, consideration of a motion for their discussion. Commissioner Young.
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve the comprehensive plan amendment request with the 12 findings of fact, incorporating the 12 findings of fact that were in the staff report.
All right, Commissioner Young has moved. Is there a second? Commissioner Keen, are you seconding?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the item? Seeing none. My only comment is I'm kind of indifferent on this particular one. I think long-term, and I don't mean this in a harsh way, Mr. Smith, but I think long-term that that property could develop as mixed use as we had in our 2040 comp plan. But I understand at the same time that it's closer to the future use is probably more suitable in as residential. So I'm indifferent here, and we'll go, and seeing that there's no opposition, I'll support the motion tonight. So is there other discussion on the item? Karen, can you please take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Young?
Aye.
Commissioner Batty?
Aye.
Commissioner Miller?
Aye.
Commissioner Keen?
Aye.
Commissioner Brink?
Aye.
Chair Legness?
Aye, motion carries. And we are on item number 10, the Smith Property Zoning Map Amendment application. It will take the same process, so I'm not going to go ahead and repeat it, but Donovan, do you want to kick us off here?
Certainly. So dealing with the same property as the comprehensive plan amendment, we have before us for recommendation to council a zoning map amendment to change the property from the B2 highway commercial use to MXR1 single townhouse residential use. And I just like to note one thing. Sorry, it's MXR1 mixed residential single family and townhouse district. That I believe this is a property, and Mr. Smith, correct me if I'm wrong, that has been on the market for close to 20 years. You've owned it since early aughts, maybe 02 or so.
2002, 2003, yes.
Yes, and you've had, I assume you've had it on the market, or have encouraged development of it, and this property has not developed in that time. What I didn't show, and I could actually offer a little more, a little informative view, is the extensive wetlands that are on the property that I think, if there's a residential use, that it could, be carved out or have more flexibility to provide development than a kind of larger retail area with a large, building footprint and associated parking. And this is not like a wetland delineation, but it should give you some idea that, the parcel is pretty impacted by wetlands. And it seems to me that residential use could be better inserted in with that environmental limitation, as well as actually using the wetlands as open space and be some amenity of open space for future residents. With that, I'm happy taking questions from the Planning Commission.
Commissioners, are there questions on the staff report? Seeing none. We'll move into the applicant, Mr. Smith. I know that seems awkward because it's so similar to the last one, but do you have anything additional to present here, or?
I have nothing to add unless you have questions for me. I'd be happy to answer those.
All right, commissioners, are there any questions of the applicant? I'm seeing none, so we're going to move into the public hearing. We'll open this at 8:07 p.m. Donovan, do we have anyone at City Hall wishing to speak on this item?
No.
Karen, do we have anyone pending online?
I have no one.
Okay, we'll give it 30 seconds. If there is anyone that wishes to speak, please raise your hand or send the City of Forest Lake account, Karen, a note saying you wish to speak, and we'll pull you up. Donovan, do we have anyone at City Hall now?
No, we do not.
Karen online?
I don't have anyone online either.
All right, we'll close the public hearing at 8:09 p.m. Commissioners, we can consider this for a recommendation to City Council as a motion or further discussion. Commissioner Young.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend to the City Council that the zoning map be changed to reflect the subject property as MXR1.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
I caught Commissioner Keene as seconding first. So there's a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the item? Seeing none, Karen, can you please take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Young?
Aye.
Commissioner Barry?
Aye.
Commissioner Miller?
Aye.
Commissioner Keene?
Aye.
Commissioner Brink?
Aye.
Chair Langness?
Aye, motion carries. Mr. Smith, I wish you the best of luck in developing this property with the new zoning. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners.
Commissioner Young, I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to, Donovan, when is the city giving away free land? Mr. Smith indicated that he had somebody who was interested, but he was able to get free land from the city of Forest Lake.
That one, you know, I don't know all the facts around that. Mr. Smith presenting that to me just recently, you know, was news to me. I believe, you know, that Mr. Newkirk is the owner of Team Vantage. So when the city in 2012 or 2013, you know, basically, you know, was able to locate the Team Vantage building in the city industrial park by the airport. They enticed Mr. Newkirk to locate there with a deal to secure that local employment.
Not quite free, but okay. Thank you very much. That helps me.
All right. We'll move on to item number 11, Piper's Preserve Grading Permit Renewal. This is a Planning Commission approval versus the recommendations that we've had here previous. It does contain a public hearing, so we will go through staff report, commissioner questions, applicant presentation, commissioner questions, public hearing, and then we'll bring it back to us for consideration and or a motion. Donovan, do you want to get us kicked off, please?
Certainly. I'd like to present the grading permit renewal for Piper's Preserve. This is a property that is located on the southeast corner quadrant of Imperial Avenue and Highway 97. This is one that a planning commission initially approved as a grading permit in 2018. At that time, there was, here on your screen, you can see, it was largely a wooded site with some kind of prairie wetlands here on the eastern side. You can see, some of the activity, in your screen. And there used to be a large ridge, about 40 feet tall, maybe, that came, through north-south through the property. And Greg Radefeld of National Builders was the original owner and applicant. Tony Fratellone, who's patiently sitting here also with us on the call, is also one of the owners now and is the applicant here for this grading permit renewal. Mr. Fratellone has submitted a plan that shows the kind of the intended result of what the grading will be. Shown is, with Imperial Avenue here on the left, a maintaining an entrance that they use for construction that bypasses the wetlands there, and potentially 3 lots. And I think it's just more for their own reference. This is not a subdivision application, but this is proposed to be what they end up with. You notice there's these steep slopes here on the south and in the west, which allow, the north, to allow for a flatter, for home sites on the property where before it was really pretty inaccessible. Mr. Fratellone estimates that there's about 30,000 cubic yards of material to be moved around to achieve that final result. And they plan to remove about 8,000 cubic yards of sand for the for a project, I guess later this year, or maybe into the spring. And then also, a part of this, Mr. Radefeld sent in some material that relate to the plantings. There was a tree replacement plan that was submitted as part of the initial grading permit. And they have, I believe it's a number of, it's 90 trees that need to be replaced as part of, woodland preservation regulations for removing that significant woodland. On your screen, you can see what Mr. Radefeld sent, and he proposes a kind of looks like a more mixture of shrubs and short trees. He believes that those steeper slopes would permit the kind of tree planting that is, proposes. It's a sheer number in the plan. We didn't get into the actual caliber, size of those trees or mix of species, but I believe it's a 2-inch minimum for those. And that's all the information I have for that. The staff recommendation is to renew the grading permit for until October 30th. I apologize, I did not include that within the staff recommendation section. Until October 30th, 2021.
No, that's not what you have in there.
No, I'm sorry. Where's that?
Donovan,
I'm sorry. Yeah, it is in there.
It's on page 66, and it's on the bottom of the first paragraph under background to October 30th. Like Commissioner Young, I had it in my notes to mention it as well. And it was actually in the applicant's letter as well, which is on page 69. It says October 30th, and I don't think the applicant is asking for a 2-day permit.
But the applicant's letter is dated September 16th of 2019.
Perhaps the applicant can clarify this when we get to that part.
No, there was not a formal applicant's letter with this time. I think I might have included that in error, but no, I'm sorry. Let me jump back to the recommendation, and it does have the extension date till October 30th, 2021. I apologize for the confusion. With also a letter credit expiration date of the following June 1st, 2022. That would relate to the some warranty time for the plantings, application. I mean, the recommendation is to the applicant adhere to the approved tree replacement plan from that original 2018 approval, and so those are those relate to the 6 staff conditions, and I'm happy to take any questions from the Planning Commission.
Donovan, I'm going to start. I'll call on you in a second, Commissioner Young. Your staff recommendation on page 67 says that it will have an expiration date of December 31st, 2020, and you just said June of 2022?
Let me, without going into the whys and wherefores, and apologize for the confusion here. So this is what I printed off from the staff packet. Maybe I apologize. Maybe I didn't send Karen the correct one.
Oh, you did.
So this is what I'm saying is the recommendation. If you can read the text here on the screen, so that 6 conditions that relate to meeting concerns, comments of the city engineer, remain compliant with the watershed district permitting, which I checked with Watershed, Comfort Lake, Forest Lake Watershed District staff, and they're fine with the extension. The applicant adheres to the approved tree replacement plan. That's the one from 2018. An improvement agreement shall be prepared by the city attorney for execution. The required $8,000 financial guarantees shall be submitted with expiration date no sooner than June 1st, 2022. And the grading permit shall expire on October 30th, 2021, with all the grading, seeding, and tree planting occurring prior to that date.
That is very different from the one that I'm looking at that's online off the city's website at the moment.
My apologies.
Can you, I'm going to ask another question. I'll get to you, Susan, I promise. On the same vein, was there any public notification to neighboring properties, and what did the timeframes on those state here?
I didn't, yes, there was public notification. We did that. We also published it in the newspaper. And we did mail notification and also published in the newspaper. It didn't, I can just quickly look at that. I don't think I stated a date in that. It was simply, it was a renewal. Let me confirm that. And it just says there'll be renewal, and the original permit expires at the end of October, and they request an additional year to remove soil, complete the grading, see the areas where soil is disturbed, and replant trees. So it just said an additional year.
Okay. Commissioner Young.
I was really confused when I read this, because as I go through the reports, I go through, there's Mark Smith's, and then we have the September 18th, 2019. And then we have the tree permit. And then we have a letter from Fred Alone, dated September 16th, 2019. And then the zoning administrator, June of 18. And I distinctly remembered making sure that, because I was concerned about having the bond go until the following June. And I don't see any of that reflected except in what you just presented us just now, Mr. Hart. Because if the grading permit ends in October, realizing Minnesota weather, there's no way that they could possibly make sure that everything was established by December. And that was what the original one was. So, it's just, what are you asking us to approve this evening?
Asking you to approve an extension of the grading permit with the conditions that, that I unfortunately kind of made extra secret. apologize for that. I just pulled the wrong staff memo. And so if you look, before you, that to approve the renewal so that basically they can complete the work that they set out to do in 2018. Remove the final usable material from the site and basically reaffirm the approved tree replacement plan, extend the letter credit, the financial guarantee until June of 22, and having the grading permit expire at the next fall, October 30th, 2021.
Okay. And what is the tree replacement plan?
Tree replacement plan.
Because I don't see species, and you said everything will be a minimum of 2-inch diameter, which is not very big.
Right. It's not big. There is, I believe, an advantage of that where the trees can adapt to local conditions. And given the number of trees, I think it's, that, we don't want them like that tightly packed in the area. So this is what was approved. It didn't, we didn't specialize, but here before you is, and the original, the owner, Greg Radefeld, and I walked the site a couple times looking at what trees, would be considered significant, that greater than 6 inches in caliper inch. So it's 60 on, in this area, and then 30 here. And obviously, those could be spaced out to be, populate more of the site. But so that's basically the areas that we're mostly concerned with and involve the slopes.
Okay. But you said that you're changing it to, instead of trees, you're looking at shrubs. And so what shrubs are you looking at? I mean, I'm not interested in 90 buckthorn.
I'd like to direct that question to Mr. Fradlone when there's we move to the applicant. The applicant's time to speak.
I mean, I'll grant that buckthorn are cheap and they're tougher than nails, but yes, sir.
If anyone wants buckthorn, you can come over to my backyard. Are there other questions on?
Can Mr. Fradlone respond?
We haven't even got to. We're still in staff report. Yep, we'll get to you in a minute, Mr. Fradlone. Other questions on the staff report, Commissioner Keene? Commissioner Keene, you're on mute.
I'm going to kind of follow along with Commissioner Young was saying. I mean, when you cut down trees and then you're going to put up shrubs, halfway through the process here, the number 3 there, it said adhere to the tree plan. Is that the 2018 plan or 2020 plan? And in his diagram, he's got 60 trees growing in a small area, or they're going to plant, and 30 trees in an area twice as big. So I'm just kind of wondering, were they just wondering where they're going with all this, and what are we voting on?
Certainly, good question. So what I'm referring to with the tree replacement plan is the one that was approved in 2018, the approved one. In 2019, there was some discussion around that, but there was no change proposed. Mr. Radefeld has submitted those photos, and unfortunately, he's not here with us this evening to explain more with that. But what the application is a renewal request, and the staff conditions are that approved tree plan be adhered to. Basically those numbers relate to the trees we found in those areas, originally. I would be looking for that top number to be as part of the replacement, and not necessarily, assign, that number of trees to that specific area. It's also what, as part of this application is that the extension that, until next fall of both the grading activity as well as that, the financial guarantee, and it's within the staff conditions to make sure that, there's a period of time where next spring we can look to see what trees did survive, and then, have that financial guarantee to make sure that, tree replacement plan is adhered to.
And then one more on that same topic has the elevations been changed from back from 2018?
I did not do a comparison, and what they submitted now is basically it's an architectural, contour plan. It's not a survey. I mean, at this point, I don't think it's really required because we're really just kind of is interim point. And what, maybe that's something Mr. Fradalone can speak to, but essentially, there has been a shift because initially, I had thought that they could use some sort of PUD for this rural residential zone area. Then I realized no, they can't. So they kind of shifted from a subdivision idea on the property. So I imagine there might be some changes that relate to that, because now, what they're looking at is more of just the 3 lots that are 5 acre minimum. So there might, I imagine there's less grading involved with that.
Are there other questions on the staff report? All right, Mr. Fradalone, if you can unmute yourself, and then you can provide any presentation or additional information you have, and perhaps answer the questions that were presented earlier.
Okay, I guess I'd first like to say thank you for allowing us to come back in and talk about this. There is 2 different items on here. Commissioner Young, regarding the tree replacement and those pictures that Greg had offered on that were shown, or you have in your packet, those are not buckthorn, those are shrubbery. And it's on a site that he's currently done up in Lindstrom, and he just wanted to show staff what it was. When you look at it on the paper, you're looking at a flat sheet of paper, but those are 2 slopes on both the north and south side that are about 2-to-1 slopes to try and grow trees and get them to root and go in there. They found that these other shrubs that they've done in this other, I'm not even going to call them shrubs because they're more expensive than the trees that we're looking at replacing, but they seem to work really well, and they seem to maintain water and grow a lot better. I myself am not an architectural engineer, I guess you would call it, or a landscape engineer, so I can't speak any higher than that. We do have Weaver's landscape architects working on a plan, but that was just brought to our attention yesterday, as a matter of fact, that they wanted to see something on paper on what we're going to do, or what our plan is and how those would fit. We're not looking at changing a count or anything like that, so we're still, our main goal is to get them slopes filled, but we want to put a product in there that's going to be supportive, and it's going to look good, because our intentions on this whole site, now that we got changed originally in 2018 from having 9 lots to splitting it into 3, so there's not a city road, it'll be more of a drive, and moving it into 3 lots. That's why we just came up with a grading plan, and there's nothing really to do with the lot sizes or anything, or where the houses are going to sit. We're going to kind of let that go as this project gets done. Our extension, our current extension that we're looking for, basically the grades will not change from the mid part where it's disturbed now to the east won't be touched at all. None of the wetlands that are along that lower edge down there will be disturbed, nor will the ones on the western edge. basically all the grading's happening right where that berm, I'll call it a berm, that was 40 foot tall that Donovan had explained before. And let's call it, 600 feet each way of the center of that berm is what's getting disturbed and lowered. That grade is getting lowered, but the existing grades are going to fall into where they are currently. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Mr. Young, go ahead.
I'm a little confused. The 3 lots that you're going to end up with, isn't one of them going to be essentially at the bottom of a swale?
No.
Okay.
If Donovan, if you could pull that plan back up, the way that that's designed, the blue lines that are in there, we basically split these lots into 3 lots that are 6 acres apiece. And the elevation is on that plan. Are you able to pull that up, Donovan?
Yeah. Let me get back to that one.
I just don't want somebody coming back to us and saying, I can't build here and I need a variance because of, yeah. Been there, done that.
I would hope we can build 3 residents on a spot that we were talking about building 9. I would hope we can make that work, but so currently the way that this is drawn, if you look at that blue line that's on there, those are representing each of those lots. And then how that top one, right where the hand is, that's 6.4 acres. Mm-hmm. The second one down below it is 6.1, and then 5.7 on the one to the south. That would be south. That lot has the wetlands right where his hand is from there to the east. So that lot, the more buildable piece on there would be from that slope to the west. It'd be the buildable lot. Mm-hmm. That would be the least available space for that lot to build on. The upper 2 will basically be current grades, and if you look at those grades, how they're flowing through, it pretty much matches into that grade that's existing currently right there.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, are there other questions of the applicant? Commissioner Batty?
I don't know. Both owner and Donovan probably can respond to this, but I'm looking at, I've got this up on another screen here, and just so the green is the exclusive area where trees would be planted, where new trees would be planted.
I don't think we need to take that as that was basically those were areas of significant woodlands. And at the time we wanted to make sure that, the trees of that weren't going to be impacting building sites. With the number of building sites changing, I think it's more important to adhere to the top number and the actual fixed locations within those 2 bermed areas.
Commissioner Keene? I'm sorry. Commissioner Batty, continue.
I'm still trying to figure this out. I just, what we're going to be voting on tonight is the extension of a grading permit. Why are we talking about trees and stuff like that? Is that a condition of the grading permit?
The owner has submitted, those images I showed. That basically what he'd like to do is shift the the tree replacement to some kind of landscaping material that looks similar to this. And I think what Tony has said, what Tony understands now is that we need a landscaped architect to give us a planning plan for Planning Commission consideration. Something more something more descriptive, and that way we could clear this up. That's why that there's the request made to change the planting plan. That's why we're talking about it.
So are we voting on that?
We still have the public hearing, and then we can consider a motion tonight, Commissioner Batty.
No, I'm not asking to, I'm just trying to figure out what it is. What the scope of the decision that we're being asked to make tonight is. That's all I care about at this moment. I'm not to the motion part of things here. And we got a drawing that shows 2 green areas and a tree replacement number pointing specifically to those areas. And it just, you know, I'm wondering why we got a site that we're not going to plant any trees on at all, you know, or one of the, you know, supposedly lots, even though we're not asking tonight for approval of a subdivision, but we're showing it. And I just wanted to know for sure that we were voting, part of our vote here is on a tree replacement, aspect of this particular site. Is it?
I mean, yes, you're asked to, at this moment, to change the replacement plan. Staff recommendation is that you just go with the 2018 approved plan. And I think, you know, from this discussion, you know, we will probably come up with some change, and some of it relates to just the, you know, the actual number of lots that in the end, this site will end up with.
All right, Commissioner Young, I will get to you, but Commissioner Keene had his hand up next. Commissioner Keene.
Well, that's kind of what I hear 2 things. One is we're sticking with the 2018 plan, but now they want change and, you know, to shrink. So are they sticking with the original tree, the numbers of trees and stuff? I don't care where they put them. You know, I mean, I think since they went from 9 houses down to 3 houses, they can, you know, when the time comes, move them all over and put in the trees. But what are we voting on? Are we voting on the 2018, or is this an amendment to 2020 where they're taking out some of those trees and putting in shrubs? That's, I guess, my question.
Well,
am I open to speak here?
Yes, you certainly can.
I'd like to just see if I can help Donovan maybe and explain it a little more thorough. What I asked Donovan to do was, this was the time to bring that up. The first thing that we're looking for the commission to vote on is we're looking to extend our grading permit. At the end of the grading permit, we have to do the tree preservation. And what we're asking is just to entertain looking at if it would be, we're not looking at a tree count or anything. We agree that we know we got to do that. We just don't really like the plan that we had now. It's just replacing it with 60 trees or 30 trees in those 2 areas. So a total of 90 on those 2 slopes. We just don't think that it's going to be suffice with the type of tree that we had to put a 2-inch minimum tree on a slope and make it carry and be able to grow. That's a whole separate issue that's going to be done at the end of the project. So our initial intent was going into this asking for the planning commission to extend our grading permit, and then we could spend more time. We'll get you the information on the plantings and things. That's not going to happen until probably the fall of next year before we do that. And at that time, hopefully we can get this project done, and we'll be able to bring you you know, a building plan or have a development plan on what the future goal is. What we're looking for now is just to get this application extended so we can continue on with the grading and get this out. I don't like blaming COVID on everything, but it did hurt us this year. We weren't able to get the material out. My goal was to get this done so we could get this development moving for next spring, and it's just not working out that way. So we need to extend the time to get the grading done. And it is winter now, or getting to be winter. We were awarded a contract in Forest Lake that starts in February. I can use some material on that site. It's a demolition site, and I'd really like to move this material in there, probably in February, which is going to have us hold some, which is just going to require us to get this extended. So that's what I'm looking for. Hopefully that I can explain it a little better.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fredolin. Commissioner Miller, I will get to you, but Commissioner Young had her hand up next. Commissioner Young.
Chair Langness, Donovan, Mr. Batty, and Mr. Keating. The problem is that the materials that we reviewed are not the materials that are being discussed tonight. We did not have any of the shrub information. We didn't have the current request. We have the 2018 and 2019 materials. We do not have the current materials in our packet. And so that is what is confusing and challenging. As we go through, I hear, okay, this picture was here. And no, it was not. So I am more than happy this evening to eventually consider a motion on on extension of the grading permit, but no other changes, because I don't have any of those materials to look at.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Young. We're still on questions here on the applicant. So Commissioner Miller, go ahead.
Yeah, Donovan. So as I look at this, you know, the old woodland preservation plan, it says it requires that the 90 trees are part of the conditional use permit that we gave them for the grading. And there's nothing in the recommendations that talks about changing that. So I don't think we can, honestly, I don't think we can vote on this for two reasons. One is we don't have the correct recommendations here. You showed us those as we are going through this meeting. But two, it does not address any of the preservation of the trees, whether they're going to be required or not required. So when I hear you guys talking about we're going to change it from trees to shrubs or whatever it's going to be, that's not what we approved originally. We approved a conditional use with the woodland preservation that says specifically 90 trees.
Is there any other questions of the applicant before we move to public hearing? All right, we'll open up the public hearing at 8:46 p.m. Donovan, do we have anybody at City Hall wishing to speak on this item?
No.
And Karen, do we have anyone online wishing to speak to this item?
I do not have anyone online.
Karen, you're cutting out a little bit, but I think you said you do not. So I'm going to just give that 30-second announcement saying to anyone that wishes, thank you. If anyone that wishes to speak, please raise your hand or send a message to the city account on here and we'll bring you in. Donovan, is there anyone wandered their way into City Hall?
No.
Thank you. Karen, anyone raise their hand? Karen?
No one.
Thank you. We'll close the public hearing at 8:47. I can hear you now. You're just cutting out a little bit. I heard you say no one. We'll close the public hearing here at
some connection.
We're going to close the public hearing at 8:47 p.m. Can commissioners give me a thumbs up just to make sure it's not my computer? Okay, thank you. And we'll move into commissioner discussion and or consideration of a motion here. Commissioners? Commissioner Miller.
So I'll go back to what I said in just a little bit ago. I'm okay with extending the grading plan permit, provided it meets the same requirements as the original conditional use permit that we issued, which includes the trees as it was discussed originally. If that's going to change, and if they want that to change, the applicant might want to start this process again instead of having us vote tonight, because I won't, in my opinion, vote for this without that tree condition in there unless we've come to some other agreement.
Commissioner Miller, I think in fairness here, I think it was a staff error on not including that information in tonight's packet, and not the applicant. And I only say that to caution that we don't prejudice the applicant on that note. But I gather your point that is important to have. Other discussion and or consideration of a motion? Commissioner Keen?
Well, I agree with Commissioner Miller. I agree. You know, if we just put an extension on the removal and elevations and all that, that's fine. But leave the tree part out of it. They can come back next fall and work with the city on that stuff. But
Commissioner Young.
Mr. Chair, I will move approval of an extension of the grading permit with all of the conditions and timing, month timing in the 2019 discussion, with no other changes in condition. It's just that they have an extension of the grading until October of 2021 and an extension of the requirements of the bonding until June of 2022.
Okay. So just for clarity on your motion, so we all understand it, it's essentially extending the dates of the old conditional use permit by 1 year.
Correct.
All right, thank you. There's a motion. Is there a second?
second.
We have a motion and a second. Karen, did you hear the motion? All right, thank you. I just want to make sure she has it. Otherwise, I'd type it to her.
I can go back and review it too, but yes. Yep.
All right, thank you. Is there any other discussion on this item? On the motion? I agree with all three commissioners here that spoke on this. I have no issue extending the grading plan. I don't know if I'd have issue with the other portion. It sounds appealing to me, but it's very confusing without that information from the staff report. And I look forward to having that come down the road, Mr. Fratellone, later in the project with the other housing pieces. So is there other discussion on this item? If not, Karen, are you able to take a roll call vote for us, please?
Commissioner Young?
Aye.
Commissioner Batty?
Aye.
Commissioner Miller?
Aye.
Commissioner Keen?
Aye.
Commissioner Brink?
Aye.
And Chair Langness?
Aye, motion carries. Mr. Fratellone, good luck on the next steps of your project, and we look forward to seeing you in about a year, maybe sooner, hopefully.
I'll bring you a pretty plan. Thank you.
Hopefully we'll be able to see each other in person by then.
Have a great night, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 12, St. Peter's Church Concept Plan Review. Donovan, do you want to kick us off on this?
Yes, sir. Chair Langness on the Planning Commission. I'd like to present the concept plan for St. Peter's Church to build a rectory at their site at 1250 South Shore Drive. This is a concept plan review, and what it involves is simply the informal feedback given to the applicant. This site, as a church in the single-family residential zoning district, has a conditional use permit on the property, as well as having multiple principal structures, and so a planned unit development is also on the existing on this property. This was both these PUD and CUP have been amended, most recently with an expansion of the church for additional school space, gathering space, and church office space. And one construction season, and followed by the reconstruction of the parking lot, which really was these are great additions to the church. Now the next phase is they have submitted this concept plan, which shows the footprint of a home, basically off the southwest corner of the parking lot. And what you have is, what you see before you is essentially what was submitted by the city. There are many different facets of the actual PUD and CUP amendment process and submittals. What the church leaders at this point would like is that informal feedback from the Planning Commission on this concept plan, on the idea of a single family house, in zoning what we'd call a single family house on the property in that kind of rear location, and having that informal feedback. I think they'd feel more confident going into the full investment of the surveys and other kind of utility and grading plans required for that PUD and CUP amendment submittal for formal Planning Commission and City Council review. Tonight, we do have Father Bodine in council chambers, and I was not prepared again for the to have both the computer use for a speaker. And so when it's time for the applicant to speak, as well as Kathy Frazier, who's the office administrator, who's on the call with us, I'll have to walk over to Father Bodine and kind of give him the screen so he can speak directly to you. So that's just part of the process here. I did have just some basic language from the city engineer and public works on this concept plan that really that they're looking for more information in order to look at what would be the utility hookups for that, in the staff packet you can see kind of the rough idea of where the site would be and where there's an adjacent trunk line manhole here in green, the green pipe. And here the site, which is currently a couple sheds there. And we know that there's water extended to the annex building here, also of course the church. So those are considerations for the more formal application. And also we'll be checking with Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District as far as what permitting they would require beyond obviously the sediment erosion control that they require for basically all single family homes that have that amount of soil disturbance. And so with that, I'm happy to take any questions from the Planning Commission.
I have one to start it off. Is Father Bodine able to hear all of us?
Yes, he will be.
Okay, I just want to make sure he's part of the conversation, can hear the entire dialogue. So commissioners, are there questions on the staff report? Commissioner Batty.
Okay. I'm just, we've done these concept reviews before, but this is, it's kind of vague on scope here of what we're looking, I guess what the applicant is looking for here. I mean, I can't see any problem here putting a house 50 feet off this very center of a, 10, 12, 15 acre site here, whatever this is. But this plan doesn't, I don't know if there's wetlands or if does it drop off there? It looks like, to me, it certainly looks like it could work.
Okay. We're kind of on the staff report. We'll get to Father Bodine to give it any additional presentation here as well. But were there any other questions on Donovan's report? Okay. Father Bodine, if you want to add anything to the conversation here, we're all listening.
Correct. The property is approximately 20 acres in size, and currently we're looking at removing 3 sheds that are 2 sheds and 1 utility building for gas lines. Those would be removed, and the residents would be placed over the top of where those buildings currently reside.
Okay. Is there anything else that you had added, or did Kathy Frazier, is she part of your application here as well? Did she have anything to add? I see she's on another.
I guess the only question we would have on the process, is there any way to expedite this process? A building could begin sooner than going through all of these. It seems like a laborious task to get a permit started. And we're wondering if that can be expedited to move along a little bit quicker.
So it certainly is a unique to have a house on this type of property. And so that is the complication that's different than when we have a house in a single family zoning district that may not need to go through planning commission approvals because the property falls under, I believe, a conditional use permit. And that permitting process is important, which at the same time lends itself to taking longer. And so while I understand that, one of the pieces that we did is we had this more informal, where we won't vote on this tonight, where it's a concept plan review. So you can hear all our feedback right off the start. And you can gather that. Hopefully it will save you expenses in this process, as well as time, as Commissioner Young, I believe, just said. So that is our hope. You know, staff may be able to help you in understanding other ways to save time or expedite the process, but I would be surprised if commissioners intentionally tried to cause you any delays. Commissioners, are there questions of the applicant, or do you want to give feedback? Commissioner Young.
Father, could you just describe what it is? Is it how big a house and that sort of thing? What do you, attached garage? What are you looking at, please?
Right, it's a residential house. It would consist of 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms. The total square footage of the house would be 3,805 square feet. 2,806 square feet of that would be heated. The rest would be porches, both in the front and the back, and then an attached garage, which is 699 square feet.
And Commissioner Miller, I say.
My question, Father, is your, I guess a couple things that I'm curious about. Is your intended use just for yourself, or is it for housing community members or church members or homeless people? I guess I'm just curious what your intention is with the house usage.
The residence would be for the pastor and for the associate pastor.
Commissioner Keen, I saw your hand up next.
What are they going to do with the existing directory at the other side of the parking lot?
That property would be sold, which would be a benefit to the city of Forest Lake because it'll be going back onto your tax roll. And currently the property that we're looking at building on is already tax exempt. So it'd be a huge benefit to the city for us to sell that property and to build back on the property of the church. Yeah, the current rectory is on Explorer Court in the Timberwolf Hollow development.
Are there other questions of the applicant, or does anyone want to give them feedback? Commissioner Batty?
Have you talked to anybody other than the city? I mean, have you talked to the watershed district to see if they have any issues on this?
We have not spoken to them yet.
Okay. Well, that's obviously one of the things you're going to want to do here. And if you can
Quickly.
figure out a way to do this so that you just, so that you disturb less than an acre, it's, that will be certainly to your advantage, but you certainly ought to be able to do that with, a 4,000 square foot building plus or minus with including the garage and stuff. Does that property drop off to the west there? Behind the what would be?
It does, but where we're proposing to build the house, it is flat, but it does eventually
so
drop off.
We're not encroaching on or close to any wetlands or anything like that.
No.
Those are kinds of things that you want to avoid if you can. I don't really see anything controversial about this. I think.
When you say encroachment upon wetlands, how close are you talking?
Well, there's a buffer. It's, I don't know. It depends on the class of the wetland, anywhere from 10 to 50 feet.
Oh yeah, we went.
Yeah, so there, I mean, if you're building on a flat piece of property, I just don't think there's anything that's particularly controversial about this.
Mm-hmm. And it's on a site where there are current buildings, like I said, that will be taken down.
Yeah, I think those are all things to your advantage.
Commissioner Keen?
So when you tear those garages down, I'm very familiar with the area. And when they tear them down, are they planning on putting them up somewhere else?
We're looking at adding onto the back side of the church building off of the maintenance stores, putting on a small shed to that area to house utility equipment for plowing, parking lots, so on and so forth.
Would that be like right where that little driveway comes up to the back of the building?
Correct, yes, yep. We refer to it as the multi-purpose room or the gym for the school. Is to be going off of that side.
Other feedback or questions? I think I'll give my feedback, and if other commissioners come back, we can come to them as well. I like that the house is sitting on that end of the property, closer to the neighborhood. Having grown up Catholic and gone to a Catholic elementary school where the priests lived in a home immediately adjacent, it was very nice that their home, and I worked there when I was in high school as well. I was an employee there. Their home was right adjacent to other residential homes. And I know that, I was a night custodian when I was a kid. And I'd pop over there and say hi to the priests in the evening oftentimes. And I know they found comfort having that neighborhood. And I think the closer you are to that setting, I think that's better for you and for whoever follows you to live in that home. So I like the placement of that, and I think it's fitting there. I think it's important that it's connected to the city utilities, and I think that will expedite the process instead of trying to do a septic system or anything separate in that home. So those would be my comments, but I don't see anything glaring on here that would stand out and tell me that I would be likely to have opposition to this down the road. So,
if I can ask one more question, just encroachment upon the sewer line that runs along the northwest corner of where the house would be, what are the requirements as far as encroachments upon sewer lines?
Commissioner Batty, do you know it off the top of your head? I'm looking for Donovan. I don't see him on.
Unless there's some kind of an easement there. I mean, what Donovan showed us here, this little aerial looks like a, Google Earth map thing. Doesn't look like the house would go directly over the top of the sewer. It just looks like it's close, which I would think would be to your advantage, because then your sewer run won't be very long. But I don't you know, if that's a city sewer main, then there's probably some kind of an easement associated with it. And you probably, you know, it probably, I don't know if you could go back. I've had access to your documents and done a little bit of work out there. And I do not recall seeing an easement, you know, on a site plan back there, but it would surprise me if there's not, seeing that sewer the way that it's laid in there. But it's probably not very wide. You know, it might be, you know, at the most, maybe a 30-foot wide, 15 feet on each side of that, that green line there. But I would think that you've got enough space there. If you need to slightly adjust that house so you wouldn't encroach on an easement, that way you wouldn't have,
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Commissioner Brink.
I was just going to mention, I think that sewer line, I mean, it's west of the road that even exits St. Peter's there. So that's even going down the hill, if I'm not mistaken. So
It's not an issue.
Commissioner Keen.
I believe that's a storm sewer drain coming from the north to that manhole and then heading out to the wetlands on the west side, because I don't see any other pipes coming into it.
I thought the sanitary was over there. Donovan, did we lose Donovan, Karen?
Oh, he's here.
Oh, I'm sorry. He's with you.
We're sharing the same screen here.
I know, and that's why Zoom is confusing. Donovan, do we have? Can you clarify the sewer and sanitary sewer connections in that?
Yeah,
corner?
that green line is the sanitary sewer. It's the public trunk line. There are no public storm sewer lines in that rear part of the property. And looking at the 2016 survey, I didn't see an easement for that. I think I have to say, with what I believe that Father Bodine is referring to the city engineer's comment. I think one of the kind of proposed sites was put a bit closer to that line, that sewer line, than the sheds are. Actually, I don't think that's going to be a concern as far as encroachments within that, any kind of sewer easement, if there is one there. I don't see that as a problem.
And Donovan, while we have you on here, he had asked earlier, was there anything that I did not note that would help him expedite this process? Or is it just more complicated because it's a CUP and we need to go through that process?
Yeah, these are the existing kind of the framework with both the house of worship in this residential zoning district and the PUD that was on the site. I think that was first put in when they did an addition to the annex around, I think it was 2012. I think I'm just sitting here now thinking of how we could, I provided a list to the church of the basic requirements, and one big one, one involving cost anyways, and in time, would be the survey. And I'm thinking that perhaps we could just limit the survey requirement just simply to the building site and any kind of utility connection. So they the church gets the information they need to actually do the construction, and the city gets the information they need to basically make a decision on this. That's one piece that, I'm thinking about this, is that, the city needs to know what they're approving, and the church needs to know what they're committing to as far as the structure. I think there's some cost considerations with the utility hookup. And once we get better information on that comes through just preparing the documents for city review, I think there'll be advantage of that. But the CUP is reviewed by the Planning Commission, and they make a recommendation on the PD amendment. And we already do process PD amendments with simple, one visit to the Planning Commission and one visit to the City Council.
Okay. Thank you. Are there other comments from commissioners, questions? Commissioner Brink?
I was just going to mention that it's, I think it's nice to see that a house being closer to the church than where you were before.
Yes, yeah, thanks.
Father Bodine, is there anything additional you're seeking from us at this point in feedback on it?
The only thing, I guess, if you follow through with the whole process realistically, what are we looking at for a time frame to get a permit?
Donovan right behind you is probably going to give you the best estimate for all of the details and set that timeline. He's the one that presents most of the things to us, and in most instances, if it's not controversial, we move on items at the same meeting. On occasion, we do table an item if there's information that's missing, or the commission decides that it wants to do that as part of the process to better understand the public's viewpoint or something along those lines. In all honesty, from the way I'm reading the commission tonight, there isn't a whole lot of controversy, and most of the feedback's pretty positive on this for you. So
the biggest determinant is going to be how quickly you can get your plans and your information together. That'll be the biggest determinant on timing.
Is there any other?
Yeah, we're ready to move. So
you already have your house plans and
we do.
And
we do.
Okay, and where you're going to tie into the sewer lines and all that information.
Well, the tie-ins, we don't, well, that's questionable and stuff. In fact, we're meeting with Donovan this past week to figure that out, where those water lines actually ran to tie into.
And I'm sure that Donovan will talk to Ryan Goodman, who's the city engineer, so that he has that information ready for you at your meeting.
Okay, great.
Is there any additional feedback you're seeking from us? Commissioner Batty, go ahead.
Donovan, are you going to require an updated survey for this?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what you need to jump on the quickest here.
Yep.
Is get a surveyor lined up to do your as-built survey.
Because they're pretty booked out.
Yeah.
We can't use the one that was submitted back in 2017 when we did the addition to the church into the school.
No, it doesn't have the current information and doesn't have all the elevations you would need, on that building site, by the shed, it's on the shed where the sheds are.
If they can move the fastest, your most economical approach to that probably will be going back to that same surveyor and having, because basically what they would have to do is just update that existing survey. They probably would do it quicker and better than anybody else, assuming the price is right and the scheduling is right.
Might be easiest for them and cheapest too.
Yeah.
Is there any other feedback? Is there anything else, Father Bodine, you wanted from us tonight?
No, I think that should do it. Just thank you all for your time. Appreciate it. And your advice.
We look forward to your final plans coming to us hopefully soon. Can you give us back Donovan now?
Sure.
We'll talk. Okay. I'm here.
Donovan, are you seeking anything additional from us tonight on this item?
No. This is the sketch, basically the sketch plan, concept plan process, and we're just seeking that informal feedback. And I think you've provided some good feedback for Father Bodine and Ms. Frazier.
Sounds good. And I liked your comments earlier about trying to limit the survey if you can to that area that's impacted, if that helps the process. You've got my thumbs up on that informally.
It's a halt survey, and so they're obviously in business and nearby.
Sure. Sounds good. We'll move on to other business. Commissioner Gerard, do you want to start us off?
I really don't have much to update. It was a pretty quiet meeting last week at the council. So week before that, we had a great meeting with the Parks and Trails, and they're working on some long-term stuff. That's all I have, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions of Councilmember Gerard? I don't have any. Thank you. Donovan, do you have any updates for us in other business?
No, actually. Just more conversations with future applicants, and hope we'll kind of bring them before you for your first Planning Commission review.
Sounds good. Karen, do you have any updates?
Not Planning Commission related at all, but election related, and I'm saying it in every meeting so that people have the information. There is no early voting at City Hall. You have to go to the government center for that. There's some signs out there somewhere, somehow, and it's directing people to come to City Hall for that early voting. We do not have that. Go to the government center. We only have voting on election day at City Hall.
I've been trying to get that message out with you.
Yeah.
And I looked at those signs and I did not find a disclaimer on them, but I will say that they're not limited to just Forest Lake. I think it's a wider effort than here.
Yeah,
some in Minneapolis as well.
They're not put out by Forest Lake, and they're not put out by the county. So, yeah.
But vote.
So,
it's Tuesday. If you don't vote early. Yep. Councilmember Gerard, did you have something else?
Of course, if I read my notes, I would have covered everything I was supposed to cover. There was a discussion that the mayor had. There's a dark sky or night dark group in Forest Lake, and so they are concerned about lighting and light pollution, I believe is what it basically is. And they were looking for some information on that. I think Donovan was given some of that. I gave a brief update on what the commercial requirements were, but I don't know what we do in the residential areas. I know very few of them have lighting, so I don't think it's a huge issue, but you may see something like that coming forward to you guys at some point. So it's really just a heads up. And then my second heads up would be, there was a discussion. I know the Planning Commission is interested in meeting live. And that discussion was had at the council meeting last Monday. And we will be Zooming for a while. And it's tied to a couple of things. One being if you're tied to the council, where if you do a hybrid model, council has to either be in chambers or in some public space, maybe another conference room at City Hall, which kind of defeats this separation and some of the other stuff. So for the foreseeable future, I would say we're going to be meeting via Zoom. If you're really interested in a little more detail from the city attorney, about 17 minutes into last week's meeting, or Monday's meeting, kind of covers that topic. It was a very short meeting. It was only about a 50-minute meeting altogether, so it doesn't take too long to get there if you want some more details.
And I can do the commissioner round first here as well, because I'm going to piggyback off of Councilmember Gerard's comments about the dark sky. I did speak to the gal, I think her name was Marlene Nordstrom, if I remember right off the top of my head. And I gave her information on the process of how we approve commercial development and things like photometric plans on the school project today and that piece, and said that that's well established in policy. I told her that from a residential standpoint, there's relatively little we do other than street lighting in some new developments. And her concerns actually went deeper than I think some of the conversations we have, which is typically, does lighting escape to a certain threshold on neighboring properties? Whereas I think her larger concern was its effect on animals, particularly migrating birds and those types of pieces. But we got pretty deep into the conversation and she had to go, and we've been playing phone tag since, and that's kind of where it left off. But I wouldn't be surprised if she came forward with some ideas at some point, but she didn't have any at the moment, would be my summary. So that is all I have. We'll keep going around commissioners. Commissioner Young, you want to go first or second?
I don't have any updates, but that would be something to bring forward when we talk about the zoning code.
Commissioner Miller?
Nothing from me, thanks.
Commissioner Keen?
Not a thing.
Commissioner Batty? Commissioner Brink?
Nope.
Commissioner Batty, did you? Oh, I saw you raise your hand. Just stretching. We are done with other business then. On item number 14, adjournment, if anyone so wishes. Commissioner Young?
I move that we adjourn.
I second. It's a non-debatable motion. Karen, can you please take a roll call vote?
Yes. Commissioner Young.
Aye.
Commissioner Batty.
Aye.
Commissioner Miller.
Aye.
Commissioner Keen.
Aye.
Commissioner Brink.
Aye.
And Chair Langness.
Aye. Motion carries. We're adjourned at 9:25 with a 14-item agenda. Thank you, commissioners, for staying on task tonight.